Hello, my name is Richard Graham, and I'm going to be talking about Rust apps for the command line. This isn't going to be about programming in Rust or building libraries for Rust. It's going to be about finding and using apps that are available right now. So I'm going to talk a little bit about why we want to do this, and then pretty much it's going to be exploring, showing off from there. So why would we want to do the command line? There's lower overhead, at least for your computer. It doesn't handle all the graphics, all the background libraries to launch GUIs and things like that. Simplicity. Sometimes GUIs help you. They hold your hand. So the command line can be challenging, but once you get used to the app, it's definitely faster. It doesn't use nearly as many resources on your computer. And because of that, it's faster. And Rust is surprisingly cross-platform as well, Windows or Linux. I use Linux. So I used one of those text to image prompts, and I said, hey, just make something like that distracted boyfriend, but have the distraction carrying a laptop. Oh yeah, and put prog in the background. And this is what it came up with. But it does show something. I mean, we have the classic benutils and all that. There's nothing wrong with those. And but Rust is interesting. And so we should have a look. Okay, and then here's the selling features. Blazingly fast, memory efficient, reliable. You know, of course, this depends on the people who programmed these apps as well. It's easy to install. We're going to do it. And it has an integrated package manager. We're going to do that too. Okay, so, I think this presentation should be fast. There's only one slide, and then it keeps scrolling. It is 4 meters long, though. So, important links. Here's the main web page. So if I click on this, is it still showing? Yes. Okay, so in here you can read all about Rust, and it's mostly about development. We're not going to do that. We're just going to use the apps. But the selling features are here. Now, some of the important links are the Learn, where again, they assume you're going to be programming in Rust. And it's good to be familiar with it a little bit, even if you're just going to use the apps. And then here we have documentation as well. There's a book that starting from 0, you can learn to program in Rust. And then cargo is the command we're going to use to install crates, which happen to be bins. Okay, what else is important here? Okay, so we have install. Here's the recommended way to install. We'll come back to that. And then crates. This is probably one of the places that you'll start. This is where you find the packages and the bins. And they've segregated them into different categories, new, most downloaded, and then popular categories, command line utilities. And then there's also the CLI, command line interface. And so if we look at this category, there's a whole bunch of stuff that you can download and run. Okay, so we want to install, but not so fast. before I go installing stuff, I don't want anybody to think that you should just curl something, run it through the shell, and feel that everything is safe. Because if you do this with whatever, they're going to steal your credentials, somebody else is going to log into your computer, and your bank account's going to get dried. So what are the things we should consider? Okay, one, is this something that you should even run on your computer? You know, if you downloaded an ARM app onto your x86, it's not going to run. So you should check to make sure it's the right kind of thing that you're going to download. You should virus scan it. And Virus Total is a good place to start, where you can upload files, URLs, you can search for previous things. And then if you really want to be thorough, you should look into one of these automated behavioral or malware analysis suites. And I've listed a couple: Joe Sandbox, AnyRun, Falcon, Triage. Those are all commercial services. They have some free aspect to them, as long as it doesn't take too long. Cuckoo Sandbox is something you can install yourself. It's a little bit tricky, but I've heard good things about it. What do these do? It's a virtual machine where you explode your malware, is the way they describe it, where they keep track of all changes in the file system. They watch everything on the network, and they look for system calls, etc. So whatever this malware or an app or whatever the install does, when it's done, it'll show you everything that it did. Okay, so just to be a little bit thorough, install options for Rust. You don't have to follow the Rust Lang instructions. Most distros have it now, so you can do it from there. There are unofficial or user repos you can install it from. You can compile it from source if you want to, or we can, follow the instructions. So let's do that. How does that look? Well, we'll see. If it's better on a light background, I can change it. So we're going to create a new user, because my home account is polluted with all sorts of stuff. So user add, okay, that won't work because we need to be super user. Okay, and let's make the password something easy we can remember. New password, we'll just make it Hansa123. Doesn't like it, but that's okay. We just persist, and there we go. Okay, so now it should have made the home directory and all that. Let's see what's there. So show me everything for home Hansa. Not much. So when you first create an account, there's hardly anything there. Okay, so let's switch user. See if I can remember the password. If not, we can change it. Okay, we are in. Okay, did anything change? We've got an X-Authority file. Still, pretty much nobody home. Okay. And yeah, we can check on that. Oop, we're not even exploring it. We're still installing. So this is right from the website. Probably should have copied it from there. Doesn't matter. And here we go. And there's a whole bunch of options. You can hit return just to do all the defaults. And this is where if I was at home, if there weren't copyright problems, I'd be playing music. And you should also know that this laptop is almost 10 years old. It's running out of space. The battery has about quit. So if you have any recent laptop, everything I show today is going to go a lot faster for you. But we'll do comparisons between Rust apps and non-Rust apps. So downloading from the internet, and Rust is installed now. Great. Okay, now it tells you, hey, there are really some environment variables that you should set, but just to make it easy, let's just log back in. Because I accepted the defaults, and so it changed our login files and modified our path, where you can see we now have this .cargo bin. Yeah, that looks all right. Okay. So, what do we have here now? Because the whole point of making an account was to look to see what happens when you do the install. Well, we've got more directories, and now if I do this, it's going to scream. There's a lot. How much? Well, let's go down 2 levels. Ooh, not even that. Okay. How about I follow my own instructions? And make it human readable. Okay, now you'll see under Rust Up, we have 1.2 gigs that it just installed. So it's when you install it this way, it's not light. And we really still don't have any apps yet. So let's install something. Okay, we install apps with cargo. And so we can look at that. And this is pretty standard for all the Rust apps. Do -- help, and it tells you if you're just using apps more than you want to know, really. And it has even more commands, but the one we want is install. And even that has a whole bunch of options that just installing apps, we don't care about almost all of them. So let's install something. Oh, okay. So Cargo Update is a nice app. And one of the commands for Cargo is info, where it goes out to the internet and tells you a little bit about it. So subcommand for checking and applying updates, etc. I'll just show you what it does. So install and play some more music. Okay, so what it's doing now is it's downloading crates, all of its dependencies, and it's compiling them as well using the Rust compiler. And on this little guy, that's a tough job. So here, I'm going to jump ahead here. And so this is another Rust app called Bottom, where you can monitor different things. And so here are the things that are running. We can filter. Let's see, we issued a cargo command, and we know it's running Rust 2. Sometime we might do a load. And, oh, I wasn't fast enough. Yes, I was. Oh, we need to use a regex. There we go. Okay. And then we can look at it in the tree as well. So if you're familiar with htop, you can get all the same information, but this is a different way of looking at it. So the command I issued was cargo, and it's taking care of everything. So it's compiling when it needs to, links when it needs to. It doesn't quite have all the features of htop yet, for example. Okay, so here we can still filter, and let's do Rust. Oop. Not happy. Okay, so we have cargo, and we can look at the tree, but the tree here is limited. It doesn't show me the head. I kind of like that. So you know which processes were launched by which. So if we're going to look at this now, this is something that Bottom doesn't do yet. So in htop, I can look at all the files that are open with the LSOF. I can also monitor all the system calls as well. Bottom doesn't do that yet, but it will. Still going. Almost done. Yay! Okay, so what did that give us? So now if we do cargo list, it actually has a new command, actually a couple of them. The install update and the install update config. And here you can read about all the options, and I already know which ones I want. Show me everything, even something from Git, and just give me a list. Okay, so it shows itself installed. Big deal. When I switch back to the other account, you'll see all the other things that I have installed. I should also mention Rust up here. It's another command that was installed with the first install. So Rust up check tells you whether you're up to date or not. And if something shows something new available, you can say Rust up update, and it's like redoes the install. And then if you need to, you can recompile. So when you're using these command line bins, you can check for updates and also check for Rust updates and update everything when you want to or you need to. Alrighty, so just to show you how to do something from Git, this one's small, so it won't take as long. Hopefully. So So this is another command line package, convert to JSON or JSON, depending on how you want to say it. And again, it's checking all the dependencies, downloading the crates, which are like the Rust packages, and compiling and linking and installing. In fact, while it's doing that, since we're not allowed to play music, so this is not in Hans's account. So here are all the bins that I've installed with Cargo, and some packages install multiple bins, but it's instructive to maybe look at one or two of them. Can we see the bottom? No. Let me squish it. Well, that's interesting. Good enough. Okay, so LDD. So this will tell you what the linker will need to link with a binary before it can run. So it's in cargo, bin, and here's another program that I'll show you. But you'll notice that everything it's linking is from the base Linux system. It's already linked everything in Rust. So that reduces load times as well. Okay, how are we doing over here? Okay, that's done. So let's make a simple CSV file. So, what do we have? Bridge 10, maybe these are tourist scores or something. Square 9, and Control G. We can look to see what we made. So that is not what I wanted to make. So oops, now it's a ridge. Yes, Murphy's Law of Presentations. Okay. I know how to get out of Vim. Okay, so it installed convert to JSON, or did it? So there's a message at the end here telling you all the different bins. So this is a CSV. So CSV to JSON. If you spell it right, does it have help? Yeah, everything has help. This one's pretty standard. So what's it make? Ooh. JQ's installed. So it's another way to do it. But it didn't just install that, as you saw. It'll also do YAMLs, TOMLs, XMLs, and do its best to convert it to JSON. Oh, yeah, we installed something new. So So it checks to see if you have the latest things you installed from Git also. Okay. Installs are taking too long without music, so we'll skip that part. All right, so let's thank Hansa and leave him. And now, back in my regular account, you can see I have a whole bunch of different things installed. And some from Git, and it's complaining. Aha. Okay, we can fix that too. I have some cruft left over. Sudo remove / temp cargo update. Okay, let's do that again. And it's going out to GitHub and checking the latest commits. Okay, and if anything did need an update, then it would just say yes. And then if I didn't use the -L, then it would do everything that package requires to update it. That looks familiar. Yeah, and if you have any questions or comments, please just go ahead and shoot them at me. Hopefully it's not like my last conference. Actually, it was a teleconference where they kept asking me why my head was so shiny. Okay, so here's an introduction to some of the apps that you might be interested in. They're the ones I'm interested in anyway. We already covered the cargo update. Prox, it tells you it's a modern replacement for PS. SID, that deserves some attention. Rock solid application kernel, the sandbox, it's like a fire jail. And there is a challenge that's been out there for several months now, where the developers, I think they're offering up to 200 British pounds now to see if you can break out. Okay, so it's capture the flag. If you use their web interface, it logs you in. They give you the password and all that if you want to try it. So, all you have to do is read the README. Okay, who am I? I am Sid, so here, cat README. Permission denied. Okay, this isn't the operating system doing this. This is Sid. Okay, but it's a link to etc. CTF. All right, let's look at that. I own it. It's mine. I can read or write it. But no, I can't. So I don't know if any of you are into hacking or something like that, but nobody solved this one yet. There's some money on the line. And things I've tried mounting the partition somewhere else. You don't have permission to do that. I've tried doing change routes. It won't let me do that. I've tried going through proc to access it. That doesn't work either. So if you want to get 200 pounds figure out how to just print this file. It's only a kilobyte long. So anyway, it looks pretty good to me. If you want to fire jail something using a Rust app, SID looks pretty good. Okay, bottom, we already used that. So, turn that off. So, yeah, I don't have the right fonts set up for this terminal. These are the Braille characters and the plots, but it's showing the background too much. You can change it to dots or get a better font. But this makes it easy to move around. You can click and see who's the hottest right now. Thermal zone 0. Okay, still pretty cool though. And if you want, you can just look at individual CPUs and the disk. Let's see, you can sort who's got the most free, some external media. Ooh, boot only has 81 megabytes. And then one of the neat things is if you hit E, it's like expand, and it shows you more. And you can pick different sort fields. You can do searching using any of the options you see there at the bottom. I usually use a regex just to find the things that I'm looking for. So that's bottom. And then Hyperfine. This is a really cool app. I don't know if you know Python, but in Python, sometimes you want to measure the performance of a subroutine or a program or something like that. And there's a time it application where you can specify how many times to run, etc. And so what Hyperfine does is you have all those same options and even more, but from the command line. You don't have to write any programs. It runs programs. And you can specify different parameters to check, and we'll do a little bit of that later. Okay, some file system apps. Everybody knows ripgrep and RG on the command line. I'll use that in a Hyperfine later, but it's a fast way to descend into whatever directories you want, looking for contents of files. fdfind is similar to the regular Linux util find. fselect is one of my favorite programs. It's a find where rather than doing switches where I have to look up the syntax each time, you use an SQL-like command for fselect to find the files you want. And I'll show you that. Oh yeah, DUA and DUDust. Okay, disk usage analyzers. Okay, let's just do, so dust, user local source, Linux. Okay, this is the latest tarball from Torvald's Linux kernel. And so it went through absolutely all of the source code to find the size of the files and displays it like this. And you have options. The default is to put all the big boys at the bottom and the smaller but possibly significant ones at the top. Okay. We have some other options. So that's dust. I actually do use that when I start running out of disk space on a partition. And that's not what I wanted. Do I have that installed? I don't use this one as much. So I had to tell it, be interactive. And so one of the nice features of this is you can scroll around and descend into directories. And each time it's showing you how much space the total directory is, and when you get down to the file, it shows you that. And there are options of what sort of graphics you want to look at, or how the size should be shown, etc. Okay. It's a replacement for ls. Beirut. Does anybody here speak French? You speak French? Oh, do you know French slang? Oh, okay. Well then, don't look up phonetically the slang for Beirut. These guys are French, it's not my fault. Okay, so this one's kind of interesting as well. So, hopefully the defaults are okay. Okay, so this looks similar. It's not showing us sizes. I could ask it to if I want. But one of the neat features of this is while looking at the directory structure, we can look into the files. So, is it still working? Okay, there we go. So I just said, hey, starting at Torvald's root, go into every single file and see if you can find fix me. And there are thousands of them. But you'll notice that it's showing us the line that says fix me, but it's also showing us where it is in the directory structure as well. And then if we want to look in more detail, a control right will bring it up over here. And we can even go over here and play around with it. So here's the whole file. We can look around and let's say, oh, okay, I'm going to go and try to fix that file. Well, there are a whole bunch of commands. One of them is print the path. So that's what it did. It exited and print the path. And you can set it up to launch an editor and do all sorts of stuff. So Beirut. Okay, so those are all the file things. Presentation and analysis. So SD, it's like said. Skim, fuzzy finder. Oh, the Beirut, when you're searching within files or even file names, you can do a fuzzy search as well. So if you can't quite remember or there's a range of parameters, it'll do that. Convert to JSON, we already played with that. CVS, LIN, XSV, QSV, these are all CSV processors. Jacques, they, again, French influence, they didn't want it to be Jack. So Jacques is like JQ, but faster. Difftastic, the name makes me laugh, but it's like diff, but it understands the syntax of like 30 different programming languages. So rather than just going line by line to see what's different, what it does is it looks at each file, makes the abstract syntax tree in that particular language, and then compares those. So if one of them has extra spaces, or it's on a different line, or something like that, for the program, there's no different. So normal diff would show you, hey, this is different. Whereas Difftastic will say, no, they're the same. MDCat, if you have a markdown file and you just want to, look at it in your terminal, it understands Markdown and will just display it. Load charts is a Rust application to do ASCII graphics. And then binwalk, it will analyze a file and tell you what's in the guts. Okay, we already played here, so here's the play part. I only have a few minutes. Okay, we already played with bottom, that's BTM, broot, binwalk, that'll take too long. Okay, so let's look at QSV and CSV lens. So here spoiler, QSV essentially has CSV lens included. So, CD data crates. Oop. Okay, all the crates that I mentioned, I think it's about once a week, you can download this gigantic tarball of all the crates and all the features of the crates. But what is all that stuff? Well, let's just have a look. So, CSV lens. So the crates.csv. So what CSV lens does, it's kind of like less, but for CSV files. So you can scroll around. I can here. Some of the readmes are more readable than other. We can pick columns, and I really can't see everything. We can stretch them. You can scroll. So it's a nice way to get familiar with the CSV. And QSV just has a command lens that'll do the same thing. Okay. Was going to explore a little bit more, but the thing you should know about QSV is it has a whole bunch of different commands. And this is an example where it's going to use the Polars version, which is another Rust library, SQL. And so what this is going to do, it's going to look up in the crates categories, which just has a category and then an app ID that's in that category. Go into the crates, which we looked at, and it's going to select all the crates that have the category 273. And if we looked in the category CSV, we'd find out that those were command line. And then we pipe that into Jacques. So somewhere in here, it'll tell you that this is a command line app. And we could further process that. But the thing to remember is that QSV has a whole bunch of commands. So you might want to have a look if you do any CSV processing, and if you do data analysis, you're going to run into CSVs a lot. And there's a printout. Okay, so Jacques is like JQ. We don't have time to do everything, so let's just jump. What directory are you in? JSON, okay. So let's do a hyperfine. I'll explain the command. First, we need to get in the right directory. And okay, so I'll explain it while it's running. So what this is doing is similar to the Python time it library. It does one warm-up round. It have a minimum of one run through the program, and it decides what minimum it should have to reduce the standard deviation, just like the time it in Python does. And then you can do substitutions. So I said, hey, anywhere where there's a command, like there, replace it first with JQ and then with Jacques, and they have the same syntax. And then you can see the results here. So Jacques is almost twice as fast. And you can use hyperfine to measure different things. You could compile something. It doesn't have to be Rust. JQ's not Rust. You can compile with different parameters and time that, or compile with different parameters and then run some performance. And then this will keep track of all of it. And it's not limited to just two. You can measure the performance of as much as you want. And there's a whole bunch of different output formats. This is just the easy display one. You can output in CSV or JSON. Okay, last command, fselect. I have a horrible memory. And so when I'm working on projects, I make a file called commands.txt. And then because I have a horrible memory, I forget where I put commands.txt. So using fselect, it's almost done. But it's gone through my entire home directory, which I think is about 40 gigabytes, looking for commands.txt. And so it's, again, highly configurable. I said on the output, give me the mode, size, the path from, this is SQL-like, my home directory, where the name is equal to commands.txt. And so there they all are. And now if I could only remember what those directories are for, I'd know which commands.txt that I want. So that's an intro to the different Rust apps that I've found useful, and have also discovered they're usually much faster than the standard Linux commands. Any questions? Comments?
I'm sorry, we don't have time for questions.
Okay, good. Nobody will ask me about my shiny head.
You can, if you will be around, people can ask you after.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.